Fighters, a classic across pretty much all of fantasy TTRPGs as far as I know anyway. You've got them in the original games, The Fighting Man, up until 5e and Pathfinder, and pretty much everything in between. And I don't think it's too far stretched to say that in a lot of these systems people would say that they're not necessarily the most interesting of characters. Doesn't mean you can't have a lot of fun playing them, of course, but compared to spellcasters singing out their powerful magics and things like that, or rogues with their sneak attack, barbarians with their resistance to damage, fighters, even though they're very good with weapons, can sometimes feel a bit like they're getting the short end of the stick. I played an Arcane Archer in 5e once, and I had quite a bit of fun with that, but apart from having my various arrows which were very cool, and your second wind and your action surge, apart from that you're mostly just making your attacks and around, and that's kind of it. And I had a great time with them, but there's definitely other places where fighters shine a little bit more. In OSC games, where having a whole bunch of character abilities isn't necessarily the focus of the thing, it matters less, and you've certainly got more hit points than the wizards do there, so, you know, you've got that going for you. But things like DCC, I think, do a really good job with fighters with their deed die, where in addition to your main D20, or who knows, D22, D24 maybe, or even higher that you could be rolling in that game, you have a deed die, which if you have a 3 or higher, succeeds in doing some additional thing in addition to your attack. Maybe you're swinging from a chandelier, flipping a table, something like that. You can put that on the D die, and if you get a 3 or higher, then you also do this thing. The D die starts at a D3 and it goes up every level, D4, D5, D6, D7, D8, and so on and so forth. So the odds of you succeeding become a lot higher the higher level you are. You also add this D die to your damage and to your attack roll, so it just helps across the board. This is a really great way to make fighters still feel really interesting, because they can do a whole bunch of combat mechanical stuff in ways that you can't do with spellcasters or other classes, because they're able to attack and also pull off these incredible stunts that almost feel on the same level as some of these crazy magics, because the things you can do are really wild with that. I also really enjoyed playing a fighter in Black Hack, which is a very simplistic system that uses D20s still, but you need to get under a certain number that you have to succeed on something. So if you have like 15 in strength, you need to roll under that number for you to succeed. And fighters have a whole bunch of extra damage dice that they can split among various enemies as they get higher in level. You have 1 per level, so level 2 you get 2, level 3 you get 3, and so on and so forth. So you slowly get more and more damage die to split between enemies or to focus on one, and that's really cool for a more simplistic system. But today, as you may well have guessed, as I do tend to do, we're going to be talking a bit about the fighter in Pathfinder 2nd edition, specifically the remaster for me of course, but it does generally apply to most of Pathfinder, as the fighter had the least or maybe no changes between the original 2nd edition and the remastered version. I have not managed to play any Pathfinder 2nd edition, so take that with what you will, but I've had a few players play fighters and I did find them quite interesting to run for, and I wanted to talk a bit about that. I'll do this with other classes as well that I've had players playing for me for a couple of years now as certain classes that I found interesting things about, but today I just wanted to talk about a few things that I found really interesting about the Pathfinder 2nd edition fighter. So here we go. I'm RevoluGM, and this is 5 things I really enjoy about the fighter in Pathfinder 2nd edition remaster. Number 1, Reactive Strike. Not everyone has it. Only fighters do as a standard. You can get it at level 6 as a feat for certain classes, mostly the more fighty ones like barbarians or swashbucklers or maguses, or at high levels as an archetype, but that's a way away. Plus, fighters also get additional things. They get tactical reflexes, they get lunging lance, disorienting opening, disruptive stance, many extra ways to hit foes with their weapons. Tactical reflexes, which is a level 10 feat, allows you to gain an extra reaction per round for you to use only for reactive strike, but that means potentially 2 reactive strikes in your turn. Lunging stance, I said lance before, but I guess I could be right, but lunging stance increases the range that you can use that reactive strike by 5 feet, so you've got a much wider area for you to now threaten with your reactive strike. Disorienting opening means that if you hit a creature with a reactive strike, they become off guard, reducing their AC until the start of your next turn. And Disruptive Stance allows your reactive strike to trigger when creatures use concentrate actions in addition to moving and manipulate actions when in your presence, and on a critical hit, potentially even disrupting that concentrate action. And Reactive Strike, even in and of itself, I think is a bit more interesting here, as it can be used to mess with people that move out of a space, around you, just move without doing it in step, which is like small movements to exactly not trigger reactive strike, make ranged attacks near you, or use manipulate actions, which includes things like casting many spells or drinking potions. Critically hitting means that you also disrupt that action, which is very powerful, and the strike doesn't count towards your multiple attack penalty. Now, as a fighter, you also have a very high attack modifier, so you're more likely to crit, as in Pathfinder. If you beat someone's AC by 10, you're also going to get a critical hit against them. This means if you've got someone on the floor, they have to get up. That's a move action. If you're standing above them, you can strike them there, as that is a chance for your reactive strike. If you get a crit, which is more likely, as if they're on the floor, they're off guard to you, then they're still on the floor because they didn't manage to get up. And then if that's the end of their turn, then they've got to try it again next turn, and you've got another reactive strike. It's very punishing, includes some great combos with your allies, and it's very fun to do. And also makes them feel more special, as, yeah, you've got to be a trained fighter with these quickened reflexes to be able to strike out at their foes, to be able to deal damage in those quick moments, whereas not everyone's going to manage that. Now, I've alluded to that before in other videos about things I really like about Pathfinder 2nd Edition, so we're going to get a bit more specific now with what we just alluded to be fair, before, with their attack modifiers, the weapon expertise of the fighter. Obviously, people like the gunslinger are going to be very proficient in their niche of weapons, but on the whole, fighters are the best and pretty much unbeatable when it comes to their modifiers. In Pathfinder, you have 4, mostly, levels of proficiency, and then obviously untrained. You have trained, expert, master, and legendary. Most people start on trained for weapons, and like some saving throws will be trained and others will be expert, and as you level up, those increase too. They give you an additional +2, 4, 6, or 8 onto your proficiency, in addition to your level and your modifier from the associated skill. Fighters start on expert for all their weapons, and start trained in advanced weapons, which are like the more unique, rather complicated ones. And they're the only class that does that. They also at level 17 reach legendary expertise, which is, again, as standard, the only class that does so across all of these weapon groups. But that's not even the end of it. At level 5, you can choose one weapon group to increase to being master proficiency at level 5, and you gain the critical specialization effects for all weapons of that weapon group. And to be fair, it does just say anything that is a master level weapon, you get proficiency with their weapon specialization, which means at level 13, when all weapons do become master, you now get the critical specializations for all those weapons, and that means that when you do a crit, you do an additional effect, sometimes more damage, sometimes you might trip someone, some things like that, depending on the weapon group. And also level 13, you get to choose one group again, so assumably the same one, but maybe you've changed your mind, which can become legendary at level 13. So obviously, level 19, most people aren't going to get that high, but level 13 is more reasonable, and if you've got one set of weapons that you're mostly using, then yeah, you've got your legendary proficiency in that already. And that's not even the end of it either, because that really helps you with hitting things, but you also get weapon specialization, which is something that other classes have in addition, but at level 7, this means you do an extra +2 damage if you are expert trained in a weapon, +3 if you're master, and +4 if legendary. But then level 15, they get greater weapon specialization as well, which means +4 for expert, +6 for master, and +8 for legendary, which is going to be most of your attacks at this point, doing 6 or 8 additional damage. And a lot of damage, truly the master of weapons and of damage. Obviously outside of specialists and additional sources of damage, this is like straight from the source kind of damage. They can also use advanced weapons, as their training with those does increase as well. It's just one tier behind, so it ends up in master rather than legendary, but you can specialize into those if you want. Which brings me onto my next item, which is number 3, the feat builds / variety. In Pathfinder, you don't really have subclasses in quite the same sense as you do in 5e anyway, but you don't have anything at all in Pathfinder for fighters. But that doesn't mean you can't sort of create your own, where you want to do sword and board, two-handed, dual-wielding, a single-handed weapon like a rapier, spears, kind of be more grappling focused and brawling, or ranged. You can make all of those work. There's so many. Even at level 1, the feats, like double slice for dual wielding, point blank stance for using ranged weapons up close to enemies without penalties, snagging strike for one-handers having a free hand. If you want to lean into guardian a bit, or barbarian or commander, then you've got additional feats you could choose like reactive shield or sudden charge or combat assessment, which allow you to mix their playstyles in a little bit more while still maintaining your high weapon skill and training. And that keeps going as you get to high levels. More feats enhancing those fighting styles, as I've mentioned above, but also rebounding toss for thrown weapon skills, lunge for polearm weapons, dazing blow for grappling style fighters, advanced weapon training if we want to enhance a certain group of weapons to our highest training level like we talked about earlier. Guardian's Deflection, if you want to be able to support your allies a little with your shield, or Shielded Stride for personal shield use, allowing you to move more than just your 5 feet from step with your shield raised without triggering reactive strikes. Positioning Assault for if you're using two-handed weaponry, you want to knock people around. And so many others. And with those we've barely covered up to 10th level anyway with these examples, and we've not even talked about the things that are more focused on strikes, which, coincidentally, is up next. If you're enjoying this video, by the way, please like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I was hoping to get to 500 by the end of the year. Looks less likely now, but you never know. It's Christmas, I guess. Miracles can happen. Number 4 is the focus on strikes from feats, adapting and enhancing them more than the other classes. Obviously, all classes are going to have a bunch that do affect this in some way, shape and form, because combat is an essential part of any TTRPG, or a lot of them anyway. But the fighters especially have a great number of things that focus on their strikes. Fighters fight, and the main way you fight, instead of spells, is strikes. I guess that's why Magus has Spell Strike. I'd never put that together. So yeah, it makes sense that fighters have a lot of enhancements to the strike. We've already talked about Reactive Strike and similar things to that, and Snagging Strike, but there's also lots of others. Not all of them necessarily have strike in the title. Vicious Swing is 2 actions and counts as 2 attacks, but deals an extra weapon damage die, and even more at higher levels. It has multiple attack penalty, but you only add that after you've done your strike. Double Shot allows you to use a bow to strike 2 separate targets for 2 actions, with both attacks having a -2 rather than having no penalty and then a -5. Parting Shot, meanwhile, allows you to step and take a shot, with the target being off guard against that attack. Intimidating Strike deals damage for 2 actions and makes a foe frightened. Slam Down allows you to make an attack against a foe and then, if successful, attempt to trip them before increasing multiple attack penalty. Felling Strike allows you to prevent flying enemies from flying for a time, and Disarming Twist allows you to make a follow-up attack against the same target, with this strike now having, in addition to its normal attack, the same success and critical success effects of a disarm check, and if you fail, you still make the target off guard. Certain Strike ensures that even if you miss the target, you will still deal some damage to them, and Needle in the God's Eyes allows you to leap horizontally or vertically and make 2 attacks at any point during the leap, only increasing your multiple attack penalty after those attacks for 2 actions. Plus, again, many others that I've skipped over. And we could always talk about reactions here too, as there's quite a lot of those beyond reactive strikes, but this is enough for now. Feats are clearly a big part of this class and making them what they are, and feat flexibility, which is my 5th and final point, also comes into that too. At level 9, you can choose an extra level 8 or lower class feat for that day, as long as you meet its prerequisites. And at level 15, you can choose a second one of 14th level or lower. It's like changing your spells, but for fighter feats, and on a smaller scale. It's good to have as it gives you a bit more variety in builds and allows you to tailor your class a little more based on the situation, like what you'd want to do with spells. And even better, as these are extra feats, so they tag on to the main build you already have. Lots more martial foes with their own reactive strikes that you have to fight, then take Shielded Stride to give you more movement with your shield raised without triggering those attacks. Enemies that are likely to be causing frightened or asking for a lot of will saves, then Resounding Bravery. Airborne foes, Felling Strike. It's pretty cool, and it also gives fighters some stuff to do during morning prep if you've got a lot of other classes that need to make alchemical things or choose their spells and stuff like that, and can certainly lead to some fun RP situations. So there we go, fighters, unparalleled with many weapons and direct weapon damage, with feats to specialise into certain styles of weapon more, but with feat flexibility to tweak them to help them fit into more niche situations too, as well as many powerful feats to enhance their strikes, to deal more damage, or make you more likely to succeed in landing follow-up attacks or other offensive actions. They're a lot of fun, and if you've not played when you get the chance to, I would highly recommend it. If you've not tried a martial fighter type in a while, they can be a lot of fun, and you can still do an awful lot of them. They can still be very versatile. But that's all for this video. Let me know your favourite fighter feats or favourite things about fighters down in the comments below, and if you've got another class you'd like me to talk about, let me know as well. I've not had the experience of playing any myself because I'm trapped once again in the Forever DM role, but I've had players play quite a few of the classes now and have got a lot of positive thoughts about most of them. But that's all for this video, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.